Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and this is a new something that I'm going to try. I'll see whether it actually works out. Some time ago, I developed a plugin called ContentID. The purpose of that was to be able to play music over YouTube and not get busted for Content ID of very heavily protected music because you're not actually hearing it. You hear little snippets of it, and none of the snippets are long enough to count. Nor are they set up in such a way where you could reassemble them into the song. No, it's like mostly muted. But you get these little glimpses of what the actual tone color of whatever this protected music is, whatever the forbidden music that you don't get to hear on YouTube, you do a bit. And the reason I'm doing this is because I have been doing on my Patreon a special feature for $10 and up patrons, because I don't withhold any of my stuff from people who don't have money. So I had to come up with something cool to do for people who were giving me a bunch of money so that I could reward them without taking away stuff that's actually musical tools from people who need them. So I'm sharing my record collection with them, basically. Like this week, I'm throwing Yes's Astral Traveler. Very similar sounds, by the way. And I'm leading off this Forbidden Music series. Assuming it's a series. If this doesn't work, then it won't be a series. But I'm working to add this to my weekly routine. I've got about 20 or so tracks in the $10 and up section for people who join, and they can go and check out bunch of different tracks, a bunch of different hit records or interesting records, and it plays them and plays the music through Airwindows Meter, the one that makes a hit record score, and then also DarkMeter, which is what you get in ConsoleH and ConsoleX2, so that if you can duplicate the colors you see on the lower meter in your mix, you'll have duplicated the sound. It's that simple. It's measuring things like loudness, where the peaks are landing, which turns out to be incredibly important, and brightness. And the color of the dot being produced is relative to how bright that peak was at that instant. And we're doing the Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows to kick this series off, which is handy because you only get to hear a glimpse of it, but every instant of this song is full blast, so it gives you a sense of how much of this you get to actually hear. Not much, but you get to see it on the meters, and I'll also fill you in on some of the details about what was going on with this track. So Revolver follows up Rubber Soul. Rubber Soul was when the Beatles got heavy into compressing. They were working to imitate what they were hearing from the Byrds, and the Byrds were heavy into compression, sometimes running multiple compressors into each other to get that completely squished sound. So on Rubber Soul, the Beatles got into experimenting with that, and in a Revolver, they'd already mastered that, so they were working with it within the context of, now that we have this mastered, what else can we do? And Jeff Emmerich, on this particular track, Tomorrow Never Knows, brought a modern recording technique to the Beatles. He brought close miking the kick drum, which was not something that they had really been doing before. They'd been miking the kick drum, you can tell sometimes, but they were still doing a sort of room recording. And I like room recordings on drums, but in this case, they got their kick drum sound by muffling the bass drum and then putting a mic practically inside it. And we're talking an expensive mic, by the way. We're an expensive EMI mic that they would never have let him do that if they saw him doing it. But he went and did it anyway, just to see if he could get away with it. And this strongly colors the flavor of the track. What you wind up getting, and there's a lot of stuff to notice here. You've got the intense sonority of this period of the Beatles recorded through the EMI Red console. That's an old tube console. Emmerich was never able to get the same sound on the Abbey Road console, which is the TG12345 console, which is also the Dark Side of the Moon console. but he wasn't able to get the same sound as he got with these older tracks off an old tube console. Because back in the day, they worked mightily to get everything sounding absolutely pristine. If this series works, I'm going to be including stuff off of Sgt. Pepper's that will blow your mind with the sound of it. They were working really hard on getting all of the sonics utterly pristine, but through these antique tube circuits that basically had all the vibe in the world. They had a very full range sound, but they also had a soft clipping. That means all of the peaks go into a certain zone, and it's plainly obvious on Tomorrow Never Knows how that works, because you'll see it showing up in the peaks. It's like a widened out version of modern loudnating, where nothing ever varies and all the sounds are exactly the same loudness. With this old Beatles stuff, it was driven into the consoles and the tapes just hot enough to squish it down a large amount. And that's how they got their loud-sounding tracks, their loud-sounding records back in the day, rather than having them sound weak. And the Beatles were among the best at that. So they really, well, you'll hear it. And again, if you can duplicate the pattern of peaks and the pattern of colors, particularly on DarkMeter, then you've duplicated the sound. That's how it works. It's just doing a picture of what the sound is. And it's doing this on peaks, not RMS. So that's what's to pay attention to. Let's see whether this works. This is the Forbidden Record, played live on YouTube, except for you only get to hear snippets of it, but you get to watch what it does every second of the way. The Beatles, Tomorrow Never Knows. I don't know whether to say enjoy, because it's going to be a weird listening experience, but this is what to study for getting these kinds of sounds. Get the behavior, and you get the sound. Check it out.